So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to list files. And so in order to list files or list directories, the command is ls. So if I wanted to see what was inside of this folder right now, I would type ls. And in this case, as I mentioned before, you don't get very much feedback. In our case now, we've gotten nothing. And so that indicates to me that we're in an empty folder. That might indicate to a new person, or it might make them think everything is broken and there's something weird going on here. So in order for us to get something to list, I'm just going to go ahead and create a folder. So the way I create a folder is I make a new directory. So it's make dir. And what we're doing when we type this command is we're actually running a small program, and that program makes directories. And so it takes some input. In this case, I'll give it a name, and I'll say temp. And so this is going to execute the make directory program, and that program is going to create a directory on the operating system. So again, didn't get any feedback. It didn't say, hey, I successfully created that. It didn't pop up a modal window for me to like click on a button and like acknowledge that I actually created it. Instead, it just created the directory. And so one of the things I can do now is repeat the previous command, the ls, and hope for some new results, right? So what should I get as a result if I type ls now?
Information on the directory.
Okay.
Temp.
I should get at least temp somewhere as an output.
And maybe a dot, double dot.
Maybe. So we type ls. We get just a generic folder listing, and the way that this is configured on Darwin is just to give you some column type data. So this will be in columns initially because columns will save a little bit of space on the screen. What I mean by that, you'll have to see another column to illustrate this, is I make another directory. And now I'm going to type ls, and now you'll see that the directories are being listed in sort of like a column pattern. So by default, without using any flags, that's what we're going to get. When in doubt, in terms of what other flags may be available for the ls program, that's what we're using right now, the ls program, we could guess that it might give us more feedback if we just type like ls-h for help, or we could type help, or we could also guess that it's --help. So when you're at the command line, don't be afraid to experiment with that and try and see what the helper set of options are. And so in this case, it basically tells us that's not valid, but it does give us some more feedback. And it tells us that was an illegal option. It doesn't like that, but instead it's telling us that you can use the ls command, and then you can use a optional flag, and it lists all of these letters, and then it lists file. So that tells me I could potentially do an ls and a file name, and it might give me some more information about that particular file. So I can list, provide it some flags, and then that might change the output. So since we only have directories, it's not going to be super interesting yet. Let's see what the actual, what were we trying to do before? We were trying to, oh, it's listed horizontally, and I think you had said that you thought we would get like a dot or double dot, meaning like a way to navigate up a folder. So the way you would see those hidden ones is you do an ls minus lh, and so in that case we can list some of the hidden folders.
Long hidden.
What's that?
Long hidden.
Or yeah, la, and that will give us those dot and double dot, which basically are navigational paths. Those are, I guess, symlinks that would take us up a folder or up multiple folders. In addition, we can now see, because we're doing the ls with an la, we can see what file permissions are set or folder permissions are set for each of these. So whether or not it's readable, writable, executable. We can also tell who are owners and have like the permission to basically touch and change things inside of the file. We can see the overall size of the folder or files, like what's inside of it, and these are in, looks like bytes, so very small amount of data taken up by each of these. And then since these are just directories, there's no files yet, so we could put a file in this main directory by just creating one really quickly. The command for that, or program for that, is something called touch. And so I'm going to just create maybe like a README file. So readme.md. And now if I type ls, I'll see that there's a README file and there's two folders. Notice that my terminal has colored them for me to see that there's a difference between folders and files. But again, it's still doing them in this horizontal format unless I list it in the L format or ls minus L.
Which shell are you in?
This is just a bash shell, and I'm using OMIZ shell that gives it a little bit more color and maybe some additional, like when I hit the up arrow, it will repeat previous commands and it will repeat them in the order that I used them in.
Oh my Z.
Yeah. But most shells that you have are going to have most of the same programs are going to be on just about any Linux operating system. So all the programs we've used so far, ls, touch, makedir, they're just going to be available as programs provided by that operating system.
Yeah, I'm just in a vanilla bash and it's not coloring for me.
Yeah, so you also probably not going to get the fancy coloration on like this has for Git. This has some fancy coloring to tell what branch I'm on and whether or not there are changes on the branch. So those are all be like third-party add-ons that you can add to your shell that will enhance the usability of it, but they're not required. So